In the Bolívar state of Venezuela, at approximately 5 degrees north, 61 degrees west, rises the tabletop mountain known as Roraima. Our investigation begins here, on a geological formation dating back 2 billion years, a remnant of the Guyana Shield from the Paleo-Proterozoic era. The anomaly is a cascade of quantifiable deviations from the norm. Its 400-meter sheer cliffs have acted as a barrier for millennia, creating a biological island in the sky where evolution took a different path. Over 1/3 of the vascular plant species on its summit exist nowhere else on the planet. The same is true for its fauna. Consider the Roraima black frog, Oreophrynella nigra. It is a creature so uniquely adapted to its high-altitude environment that it has lost the ability to hop or swim, instead moving with a slow crawl. The summit is not a jungle, but a bleak, rain-scoured labyrinth of black-stained sandstone and quartz. For centuries, the indigenous Pimon viewed the mountain as the stump of a cosmic tree, a legend derived from a landscape that functions outside of familiar norms. The true anomaly for our purposes is the cumulative effect of its geology and isolation. Scientific expeditions consistently log erratic compass readings, a phenomenon attributed to the vast mineral deposits within the ancient shield rock. This is a place so old it operates on a different physical baseline, a study in deep time. But over 1,000 kilometers to the northwest, another timeline is under scrutiny, one that challenges the history of human arrival in the Americas. In the arid, coastal plains of Falcon State, at approximately 11 degrees north, 69.5 degrees west, that scrutinized timeline comes into sharp focus. This is Taima, a paleontological site that appears less like a location of historical significance and more like a simple watering hole. Yet the evidence unearthed here in 1964 initiated a paradigm shift in American archaeology. The central artifact is not a monument, but a fragment of a young mastodon's pubis bone. Embedded within it is a stone projectile point, a tool of the El Jabo culture. The context is unequivocal. This was a kill site. The paradox arises from the dating. Radiocarbon analysis of associated organic material, specifically twigs in the surrounding clay, returned a consistent age of 13,000 to 14,000 years before present. For decades, the established consensus, the Clovis first model, held that humans arrived in the Americas no earlier than 500 years ago. Taima's data predates the Clovis horizon by at least 500 years. The finding was so disruptive, it was met with decades of intense skepticism. The site was re-excavated, the stratigraphy re-examined, the data reconfirmed. The paradox is that this single bone fragment, found in a Venezuelan spring, forces us to abandon a century of accepted theory and redraw the map of human migration. It suggests earlier arrivals, potentially via coastal routes, and a human presence far more ancient and complex than previously believed. The timeline of this continent's first people is not a straight line, but a fractured narrative still being pieced together. And hundreds of kilometers to the east, another established narrative, this one meteorological, would be just as profoundly broken. In Zulia State, at approximately 9.33 degrees north, 71.75 degrees west, that broken meteorological narrative manifests with an almost predictable intensity. This is the mouth of the Catatumbo River, home to a phenomenon so reliable it has been used for navigation by sailors for centuries. The Relámpago del Catatumbo is not a typical storm. It is a near-perpetual engine of lightning, holding the Guinness World Record for the highest concentration of lightning strikes on the planet, with an annual average of 250 flashes per square kilometer. For up to 300 nights a year, for as long as 10 hours a night, the sky here discharges electricity at a rate of up to 28 flashes per minute. The mechanism is a product of the region's unique topography and wind circulation. Cool, dense air flows down from the surrounding Andean mountain ranges and collides with the warm, moist air mass over Lake Maracaibo, creating near-perfect conditions for continuous thunderstorm development. This channel is dedicated to the forensic re-examination of such anomalies. If you find this approach compelling, consider subscribing to support our ongoing investigations. For generations, the Catatumbo lightning was a constant, a fixture in the sky. Then, in late January 2010, it stopped. For the first time in recorded history, the storm went silent. For nearly 3 months, until early April, there was nothing. The official explanation points to a severe drought linked to an El Niño event, which disrupted the delicate atmospheric balance. But the event serves as a stark reminder that even the most predictable systems on Earth operate on principles we do not fully command. The sudden absence of a constant is often more unsettling than a sudden, violent appearance. The 2010 silence was a system failure on a planetary scale, a temporary shutdown of one of Earth's great electrical generators, and it demonstrates that even here, what we see on the surface is governed by forces hidden from view, a principle that becomes far more literal when you venture underground. In Managua State, at approximately 10.17 degrees north, 63.55 degrees west, that principle of venturing underground to find hidden forces becomes a geological reality. This is the entrance to Cueva del Guacharo, a limestone cavern system first scientifically documented by Alexander von Humboldt in 1799. The cave is named for its primary inhabitant, the oilbird, or guacharo. These are not ordinary birds. They are the world's only nocturnal, fruit-eating avian species, navigating the absolute darkness of the cave not by sight, but by echolocation, a biological sonar system analogous to that used by bats. For centuries, the indigenous Chima people believed the birds were the reincarnated souls of their ancestors, a belief that effectively placed the cave's deeper regions off-limits. Modern science has replaced superstition, but the prohibition remains, albeit for different reasons. The cave system is officially charted to a length of 10.2 kilometers, making it one of the longest in the country. However, public and most scientific access is restricted to the first 1.5 kilometers. Beyond that point, the cave's true extent is a matter of conjecture. The unseen chambers are not a metaphor. They are a physical, unmapped territory. Exploration is hampered by powerful subterranean rivers, near vertical shafts, and atmospheres that may be rich in carbon dioxide and other gases. What we know of the cave is based on a fraction of its total volume. The remaining 8.7 kilometers represent a sealed environment, a potential laboratory of unique geological formations and isolated biological evolution, a vast, dark space on the map marked simply unexplored. On the Guyana Shield, spanning the borderlands of Guyana, Venezuela, and Brazil, the concept of an unexplored space on a map takes on a different meaning. It is not a void to be filled, but a feature to be erased. This region was once home to a cartographic phantom, a ghost of geography that haunted explorers for over 2 centuries. This was the location of Lake Parim. For generations, this massive body of water, reputedly 400 kilometers in length, was a fixture on European maps. Its shores, the supposed site of the golden city of El Dorado. It was an accepted fact, pursued with the same certainty as any other geographical objective. The forensic question is not whether the lake existed, we know it did not, but how this error was perpetrated with such conviction. The answer lies not in myth, but in misidentified geomorphology. In 1800, Alexander von Humboldt, after extensive research, proposed a compelling theory. He argued that the seasonal inundation of the Rupununi savannas in Guyana, fed by the overflow of regional rivers, created a vast, temporary inland sea during the rainy season. This annual flooding can cover an area exceeding 50,000 square kilometers. Early explorers, arriving during this period of peak inundation, would have encountered a body of water on an epic scale and, logically, mapped it as a permanent feature. The legend was not a pure fabrication, but a temporal illusion. It took until 1840, when the explorer Robert Schomburgk conducted a systematic survey for the Royal Geographical Society, to definitively prove the lake's non-existence. Modern satellite data confirms Humboldt's hypothesis with digital precision, showing the dramatic seasonal expansion and contraction of the floodplains. The case of the Phantom Lake is closed, a forensic victory for observation over assumption. The mystery was never a city of gold, but the powerful, cyclical hydrology of the shield itself, a force that could create a lake and then make it vanish. In the capital district of Venezuela, near the coordinates 10 degrees 30 north, 66 degrees 55 west, the powerful forces of nature that create and erase landscapes give way to a far more localized and baffling phenomenon. While the Phantom Lake of the Guiana Shield was a grand illusion explained by hydrology, our next case file concerns a substance that was dangerously real, tangible, and to this day, scientifically unclassified. This is the file on La Mancha Negra, the Black Stain. In 1986, a 45-meter patch of a mysterious, greasy substance appeared on the surface of the Caracas-La Guaira highway. It was black, slick, and possessed a consistency that defied simple explanation. Over the next 5 years, it spread, reportedly covering up to 12 kilometers of roadway. The consequences were immediate and severe. Official records are difficult to consolidate, but conservative estimates attribute hundreds of accidents and numerous fatalities to the inexplicable loss of traction caused by the stain. The government's initial explanation was simple asphalt bleed, a common issue in hot climates. This was quickly proven insufficient. The substance behaved unlike any known road material. It expanded in the heat, seemed to regenerate after being washed, and had a complex organic composition that forensic teams, including consulted experts from Europe, were unable to definitively identify. It was described as being like a chewing gum, an amorphous organic paste. Desperate, the Ministry of Transport and Communications eventually abandoned scientific solutions for a brute force approach. They scraped the material off the road surface and then poured tons of pulverized limestone over the affected areas, hoping to absorb whatever remained. The stain retreated. The mystery, however, was not solved. It was simply buried under a layer of dust. The file on La Mancha Negra remains open, a bizarre chapter in urban engineering, where a major metropolitan thoroughfare was held hostage by a substance of unknown origin. Across the vast Venezuelan llanos, particularly in the state of Portuguesa near the coordinates 8 degrees 30 north, 69 degrees 00 west, we find a phenomenon that is just as deadly as a patch of unidentifiable road grease, but infinitely harder to scrape away. While the mystery of La Mancha Negra was a tangible substance that defied forensic chemistry, some of the most persistent threats are not physical at all. They exist as data streams encoded not in organic paste, but in cultural memory, transmitted through generations with the precision of a virus. Here, we shift our investigation from a substance that stained the roads to a story that stains the mind. This is the anatomy of El Silbón, the Whistler. The legend's primary diagnostic feature is an auditory paradox that violates fundamental principles of acoustics. A distinct 7-note whistle, following a simple diatonic scale, is said to drift over the plains at night. If the sound is clear and loud, the source is distant. If it is faint, almost imperceptible, the source is upon you. The entity is described with remarkable consistency across a territory spanning hundreds of thousands of square kilometers, a gaunt male figure of anomalous height, carrying a heavy sack. The contents of the sack are, according to the core narrative, the bones of his own father, whom he murdered. The Whistler's target profile is not random. It is highly specific, preying almost exclusively on drunkards and philanderers, suggesting the legend functions as a powerful, self-perpetuating tool for social regulation in isolated communities. The origin story is a case file in familial horror. A son, enraged that his father returned from a hunt empty-handed, kills him and harvests his organs. As punishment, his grandfather subjects him to extreme torture before cursing him to an eternity of wandering, pursued by a demonic dog, and burdened by his father's remains. What is remarkable is not the tale itself, but its clinical effectiveness and durability as a psychological deterrent, a genuine unseen force with measurable effects on human behavior. While a legend can function as an unseen force with measurable behavioral effects, some unseen phenomena are the result of far more deliberate physical engineering. In the Andean state of Táchira, near coordinates 7 degrees 48 feet north, 71 degrees 49 feet west, we find the remains of a place that was not lost to time, but to a spreadsheet. This is the former town of Potosi. In 1985, its roughly 200 residents were relocated, and the entire valley was methodically submerged to create the Uribante Caparo Reservoir, a key component of a national hydroelectric project. The town was officially erased. For over 2 decades, it existed only in memory and on outdated maps. Then, in 2010, a severe drought linked to the El Niño Southern Oscillation caused water levels to drop by over 30 meters. Potosi began to resurface. The town's 26-meter-tall church steeple, which once marked the center of a community, re-emerged from the water, not as a symbol of faith, but as a stark, undeniable gauge of systemic drought and energy grid instability. What was designed to be permanently unseen had become a recurring, nationally televised spectacle. The re-emergence of Potosi is not a haunting. It is an environmental and economic post-mortem. The skeletal structures of homes, the town square, and a cemetery reappear on the cracked reservoir bed, providing a physical ledger of what was sacrificed for a promise of progress that has since faltered. The town that was drowned to provide power now only reappears when that power system is most vulnerable, a feedback loop of concrete and consequence.